Out there in one of the dungeons, an S rank to be precise, our MC Ming clears the Death Den, which is known as the most ancient dungeon and the first S rank to appear in their world. He eventually shows up looking worn out and tired after slaying the god-tier aberrant beasts. But to his surprise, he sees the warrior group staring at him like prey, demanding that he hand over the artifact he had gotten from the dungeon. Despite knowing he's the god of slaughter, they confidently tell him to get ready to die. Su learns that it was all orchestrated by Zhang Xuan, his supposed friend whom they've teamed up with since they awakened. Now Zhang plans to strip Su of his powers. Su gets mad at him and prepares for a showdown by telling Zhang and his men to come for the artifact, the Divine Ring of Defiance. They see Su power up and note that he's using the ring's power, so as they plan to jump him, Zhang tells them to wait because the plan will soon be complete. From the sky, Ren Xiaomon approaches Su, who is surprised to see her show up. She hugs him and tells him that she heard he's being plotted against, so she came to help. Su assures her that there's no need to worry. After all, he has the divine artifact, so they are no match for him. But Su asks her the question that lingers in his mind, wondering how Zhang and the others know his whereabouts, and to his surprise, Ren stabs him in the gut before informing him that she was the one who told them. Horrified and surprised, Su asks her why she had turned against him, but Ren activates a spell, and Zhang happily yells that the plan has been completed. He tells her to activate prison formation, and immediately, Ren runs to his side while chains come out from Su's wound. On that spot, Su realizes that Ren had betrayed him long ago and partnered up with Zhang just for this moment to get the artifact. Su curses them after seeing that he was only used as a tool for their gain, and immediately, they charge at him to get rid of him and get their hands on the artifact. From nowhere, skeletons appear, and a lady named Ji Yao yells at the warriors to stop. The skeletons block the attacks while Ji Yao tells Su not to give up. Zhang sees Yao and tells her that she has a death wish because no one can save them from the number of masters among the warriors who'll face them. As the opposition rains their attacks, Zhang pulls out his blade and cuts Yao. Su screams as he sees Yao fall, and just when Zhang approaches him to cut him down, Su grabs the chains while gritting his teeth in pain, and he forcefully breaks them. The others who witnessed it are stunned after seeing Su use a divine-level technique, which was only possible thanks to the artifact. Su rushes to Yao and asks her why she showed up despite the number of times he let her down. She weakly reaches for his face and tells him that if he must die, then she would die with him. Moved, Su lifts her and angrily declares to everyone watching that he vows on his title as the god of slaughter to hunt and kill every one of them if he's ever reborn. They see Su moving back to the Death's Den and worriedly rush to stop him from taking the artifact with him, but Su takes out the ring and tosses it while jumping into the dungeon with Yao. Later, he regains consciousness while wondering if he's dead, but he sees he's at the academy. Not only that, but he's at the 127th awakening ceremony. There, the 18-year-olds awaken, and their future paths are decided based on the area of their awakening. Su looks around and recalls reliving such an event. He confirms everywhere is real and realizes that he has regressed to when he was 18. He sees that the people called to have their abilities checked are exactly as it had happened, meaning no deviation from the way things were. He smiles happily after learning he's been reborn, and the memory of his friend's betrayal flashes before his eyes. Suddenly, Zhang successfully awakens as the Magic Hammer Warrior. The students hail him after seeing that his innate attribute is an 8-star level. While the others glaze him and his family background, Su stares daggers at Zhang. Suddenly, Yao shows up and tells Su she's been looking for him. He stares at her surprisingly, and she wonders if she's got something on her face. Su then tells her he's congratulating her in advance. While she wonders what he meant, Su notes he's happy to see her. The announcer calls Yao next, and when she touches the heavenly stele, they all realize that she has awakened a hidden profession just like Zhang, but this time around, it's necromancer with star level 7. Everyone is shocked that their set has 2 hidden profession awakeners, which seems like an overkill. Lastly, Su is called to touch the heavenly stele. As he walks there, his mates dismiss the possibility of him being the 3rd professional awakener just because he is an orphan. In the country known as the Blue Star, after the first set of awakeners decades ago, people began to awaken when they reached 18 by participating in an awakening ceremony. The awakened are known as the elite, who have the powers to bend the rules of the nation and amass wealth, but they must face ferocious beasts, terrifying dungeons. And with all the cons that came with awakening, Su in his past life, who was an orphan that depended on reliefs and scholarships, awakened with amazing star-level innate attributes, the legendary profession, the god of slaughter. Currently, Su stands before the stele with the hopes to enlighten everyone once again about his ability, but when he touches the stele, it fluctuates so heavily that everyone wonders if it's the birth of a 9-star rank profession. But to everyone, including Su's surprise, the Ring of Defiance appears from the stele. He grabs it and sees that the artifact traveled through time to meet him. As soon as he touches the ring, a status window pops up and classifies him as the strongest beast slayer, his mythical profession, the sword god. The announcers and everyone around are surprised by the fluctuation phenomenon, and they wonder what profession Su is getting. Jang, on the other hand, wonders why Su isn't moving. Meanwhile, Su looks at the pop-up window and wonders why his profession has changed from god of slaughter to sword god. He scans his fingerprint, and his golden talent is the sublimation of all things. He goes through the stats and realizes that his level will be higher than that of his past life. He opens his skill set and sees there is nothing there. But as he frantically tries to operate the status window, the others wonder what is taking him so long. The system eventually answers him and scans the Ring of Defiance, and after identifying it, a bright light bursts from the stage and goes straight into the air. Everyone there looks into the air and sees that Su is star level 10. Unfortunately, he is awarded the profession, Sword Controller. Everyone is shocked at his level, and they wonder if they have 3 students with hidden professions. The problem is that the Sword Controller isn't a high-class profession, so the 10-star level seems like a high potential for a low-grade profession. When Su returns, his classmates snicker at him and note that Su will have to cultivate twice as much as others to get points matching others. They look down on him and note that the maximum he'll ever get from that profession is to act as a support in battle. Despite all their sadistic remarks, Yao happily congratulates Su and calls him amazing for his 10-star talent. She believes he won't have any problems growing stronger in his profession. Su thanks her for encouraging him and opens up to her by saying that everyone else's reaction was what he wanted. She doesn't understand what he means, but as soon as Ren is called up to the stage to check her profession, all the boys start cheering for her. Yao admires Ren and talks about how Ren is their school beauty. Just like others, everyone anticipates her new profession, but to Yao's surprise, Su walks off and tells her he's not interested. What haunts Su is the fact that Ren had used his talent and betrayed him without hesitation. As he walks off, he notes that he'll have his revenge. On the streets, Su sees there's no change to the environment like he remembers it, and the only exception is his new profession. Su checks his status window and sees his concealment skill, which is one of the 4 skills of his previous life, available in his skill set. The status window adds his former skills to the skill catalog and shows him he's at the very first level. Su plans to hide as much as possible about himself to avoid being used like his past life. Based on the way things occurred in the past, he expects a novice dungeon challenge to show up the next day. Knowing fully well that it'll be a breeze for him, Su realizes he has to defeat a particular boss during that event, and for that he'll need good equipment. Meanwhile, Ren stays with Zhang in a hotel suite, and she calls him mischievous for having her over right after the end of the awakening ceremony. He gets pissed upon hearing about the ceremony because Su had robbed him of everyone's attention due to his star level. Ren quickly pacifies Zhang and then tells him that Su will be of use to them in the future, thanks to his high stats. She shows Zhang her phone to prove how Su used to like her, so she types a message which she plans to send to Su to get him to work with her. Su, on the other hand, arrives at the equipment store in the city, and he sees students from nearby schools checking the place out, which means that they too have completed their awakening ceremonies. Su checks around and sees a group of students talking about a tyrant frigid sword, a very expensive diamond-grade weapon that can freeze monsters. As Su passes them by, he smirks as he notes that the sword is actually a fake, which is due to the occurrence in his past life. Suddenly, Jiang Lan from the Jiang conglomerate shows up and introduces herself to him as a worker who knows him. Unable to recall her face, Su tells her he doesn't know her, but that's fine because she wants him to help her sister, Jiang Yuncheng, in the upcoming novice dungeon. To Lan's surprise, Su refuses, but she reminds him that he is poor and will readily cover for any equipment he buys. On hearing this, Su points to a frosty sky sword that's worth 1,000,000 advent coins, and Lan tells him he's making things difficult for her. She asks him if he thinks he's worth the amount, but he reminds her that she was the one who said she would grant him his request. Because of this, Su tells her that there are situations that financial power can't help, so Lan should ensure Yunqing puts in all her efforts for the dungeon test. Lan's guard nearly acts up, but she stops him and leaves with him. Everyone around is shocked that Su played such a hotshot. Su suddenly gets a message from Ren, who tells him she has a change of heart towards him and would like to meet him on the rooftop. He sees that things are still progressing like they did in the past, so he accepts her invitation. After that, he goes to another segment in the store where they sell sword stones. In reality, it's very rare for the sword stones to transform into graded weapons, since most of the sword stones are scraps. The secretary tries warning Su about it, but he doesn't back off and tells her he's ready to gamble his luck since the stones are cheaper. Meanwhile, Su uses one of his skills known as the Eye of Intent to check the stones out till he lands on the surest one. The eye helps him see all the fundamental information about all matters. With that, he selects the raw material and buys it dirt cheap for 50 advent coins. Yang Ding, a rich bully and his sidekick, see what Su is up to and they make fun of him for being foolish to reject the offer from Jiang's conglomerate and sticking to buying a scrap. To crash their ego, Su tests them by wagering 5,000 advent coins if he gets a silver weapon. They laugh at him and conclude he has some screws loose, so they accept the deal. Su immediately grabs his chance by using his Eye of Insight skill to draw out the weapon in the swordstone. To everyone's surprise, he pulls out a black iron crimson-edged sword, a low-grade silver weapon that drinks monsters' blood and heals its master. Su calls it a good weapon, which is perfect for his date later that night. Yang Ding realizes he's been had and watches as Su says the weapon has a lifesteal effect, which means he won't need a healer. Su then demands his money, and Yang Ding reluctantly pays it to him. The receptionist checks out the sword and finds it hard to believe because it's been years since someone pulled a good sword out of the rocks. Su then meets her for a scabbard and purchases one with the 5,000 advent coins he just got. His status window immediately informs him that the scabbard will reduce the sword degradation by 50%. It asks if Su would like to open the hidden materialization function, but Su declines and declares he's going to raise the grade. With that, Su takes his leave, and as he heads home, he checks his status window and wonders why he doesn't have any single profession skill attached to his sword god title. But on the professional talent tree, he has the sublimation of all things, a skill that can upgrade all loot, but it can only happen once. Su applies it to his weapon, and it gains the bloodthirst effect, making 2 abilities. 1, the Blood Drinker, an ability that heals the owner after cutting an opponent. The second one temporarily increases the owner's stats by 5 points for 30 seconds. After reading up on them, Su opens the hidden weapon materialization and notes that preparation for the next day's dungeon raid is complete. Later that night, Su goes to the rooftop where he sees Ren waiting for him. She acts like a vixen, telling him he's late, but she freaks out when she sees him hurl his sword at her. It lands a few feet away from her, and she asks him out of fear about what's wrong. Su tells her that he has shown up for revenge, but she doesn't know what he's talking about, so she tells him she came because she took the initiative to ask him out since he liked her, but now she finds it strange that he wants to kill her. Su immediately recalls how she approached him right after the awakening ceremony in the academy ended, and for the first time, he received her concern. From then on, she talked to him till he eventually asked her out and they started dating. They were the days he treasured the most due to the times they spent together, but having realized that they were fake, Su candidly tells Ren about how he's aware of her ploy with Zhang to use him. Surprised, Ren tries to cover up, but Su doesn't let her finish, and he calls her a shameless hoe. At that point she snaps, and admits that if not for his talents, he wouldn't stand a chance to talk to her. She vows Su won't get away with insulting her, but Su doesn't care, and he even threatens her social status by saying he'll ruin her pure and innocent image if he exposes her relationship with Zhang. She gets very pissed and grabs his sword to attack him, but the sword's bloodthirsty activation activates, and it cuts her face. Ren starts screaming not only from the pain, but because her perfect face is now disfigured. Su picks up his sword and says her new look suits her, and it's time for his revenge. Annoyed, Ren vows to have Zhang kill him, but Su simply walks off and tells her that Zhang can come at him anytime. Before leaving, he tells Ren that she should consider the slash done by him and that it represents how the concern he had for her has been cut. Meanwhile, Principal Wang gifts Su some items and money as a starter pack for the Novice dungeon raid. The next day, around 6 a.m., Su chews on the marrow-strengthening pill he received from the principal and wonders if the old man pitied him because of his sword controller profession. Although it tastes bad, Su levels up and gains a passive talent to master all types of sword skills without restriction. As Su walks to the venue, he plans to show the other students what he's got in the Novice dungeon. By the time Su gets to the venue, a lot of students clamor to team up with him, but he declines their request and tells them he is already on another team. Coincidentally, Yao hears him and feels down because she came very early that morning, hoping to team up with him. Su mutters to her not to team up with him because he'd be worried about her getting hurt since he's going after something dangerous. While they discuss, Yanzi shows up and introduces himself as a level 9 demon hunting ranger who wants Su to team up with him. Su remembers him from his previous life, but as he wonders how to turn Yan down, Yao covers for him by telling Yan that she has already teamed up with Su. She chases everyone else, and Su notes she's reliable. A few minutes before 7, the principal addresses them via a live stream as the dungeon portal opens. He explains the rules to the student, mentioning how they get points by overcoming challenges and they are to finish within a day. As he riles them up and advises them to team up, Yao looks around but can't find Su, who was with her moments ago. Immediately, as the principal kickstarts the event, the students talk about how someone has already gone beforehand. Su, on the other hand, descends into the portal, and he notes the familiar feeling since he's been there before. Back then, he moved around recklessly, trying to stockpile contribution points, but this time around, he plans to face the most difficult challenge, which is to slay the ultimate hidden boss. He eventually arrives inside the dungeon and notes that his spawning point is different from that of his previous life. which is why the place, route, and monsters are different for the challengers. Su conceals his presence from an elite tree monster even though he can deal with it because he doesn't plan to waste time fighting foot monsters, and his priority is the hidden boss. He checks the map to the route to the hidden boss and then notes that he has to hurry so he has a head start in raking items. Around 7:30 a.m., Yunqing and her party spawn not too far off, and they notice the place is quiet. All of a sudden, they see a particular student being hunted down by a giant frenzied blood rat. They all split up and run, but a minute later, 3 out of the 4 of them are gnawed to death, with the highest among the team being a 6-star. Everybody still outside the portal is concerned because someone that high didn't even last long in the dungeon. The announcer then orders them to form teams as quickly as possible because the challengers inside need help. Meanwhile, Yunqing, the only survivor of her team, runs so far that she loses track of where she's at. Out of the corner of her eye, she sees an ape monster, and the creature leaps at her with killing intent. Scared to the bone, Yunqing screams for help, and behold, the monster gets slashed multiple times by Su. While everyone else in the dungeon suffers from the monster's onslaught, Yunqing wishes she had stayed hidden, but as she sees Su easily cut down the ape, she realizes he's very strong and assumes the ape is dead. Su corrects her that the ape isn't dead yet, and she should be careful because he won't save her the second time. She quickly bolts to get reinforcement for him, but that's exactly what he needs, some alone time. Su uses his Eye of Insight and learns that the ape isn't ordinary but a mutated ape king, so he concludes that it's the reason the ape had survived his slashes. The ape charges at him, and Su sees that the creature is very fast. He evades its attack and then decides to challenge it in a speed contest. To do that, Su uses his 3rd skill from his previous life, which is the Divine Shadow Step. Su attacks the ape, and as the primate tries to counter Su's slash-butt, Su appears right behind it and baits it with some slashes. The ape turns around and leaps at Su, but Su sees he outclasses it in speed and he finds it boring, so he goes for a finisher by lopping the head. As a result, the system rewards him with a linear slash scroll for successfully defeating the mutated Ape King. It's a low-tier bronze skill that Su says is perfect for the novice dungeon. Suddenly, Su is awarded first blood drawn for being the first person to kill a monster. Moments later, everyone receives the message that a sword controller has killed a monster. A lot of people from Su's academy assume he's the one, but some others dismiss it. After all, there are also sword controllers from other academies that are participating in the dungeon. As a result, everyone receives a healing potion. When Su hears his achievements with his title broadcast, he notes that he must be more careful by using the concealment skill to prevent them from knowing. As Su waltzes through the forest, he sees a pack of monster wolves and calls them the perfect specimen for his newly acquired skill he got from defeating the Ape King. He activates the skill known as the Iaido Slash and then draws the blade from his sheath after focusing his mind. Immediately, a flying slash attack goes straight to the wolves, and the monsters barely have time to react before they're cut down one after another, their bodies collapsing as experience points flood into Su's system window. He continues the efficient slaughter without hesitation, steadily farming until his accumulated experience climbs to 8,000. At exactly 9:30 a.m., Su upgrades to level 9, and the system promptly notifies him that he has obtained the title called Legend of the Hungry Wolf. Glancing through his notifications, Su calmly reviews his success and acknowledges the efficiency of his Iaido skill, especially when paired with his sword's unsheathing ability, which releases the energy stored within the scabbard at the moment of draw. Curious, Su decides to test it further. He channels the accumulated energy and releases a sharp, crescent-shaped energy slash toward another group of hungry wolf monsters confronting him. However, to his surprise, a massive level 10 Wolf King suddenly emerges from the forest depths, and it effortlessly deflects the attack. Meanwhile, at 8:30 a.m., other rookies form parties and enter the novice dungeon to begin their trials. Thereafter, they encounter a mutated field mouse and engage it with everything they've got. The fight is messy, and there are casualties along the way, but after a hard-fought struggle, the creature finally falls. Hyped, the rookies cheer as they receive experience points and celebrate the defeat of a special monster. Riding the high of their victory, they decide they can't afford to fall behind the player who drew first blood and sent them potions earlier. However, they receive another message from the system, informing them about another player getting first blood on a leader monster. Surprisingly, the player is a level 9 fisherman who obtains the Leader of Leaders title with that achievement. Unease spreads through the group, and they wonder if the profession they once dismissed might actually be terrifyingly strong. 10 minutes earlier, Su steadily chips away at the Wolf King's HP, his movements precise and controlled. From his perspective, the beast is nothing extraordinary. With one final strike, he brings it down and calmly remarks that it's no match for a reincarnate like him. Following that, the system congratulates Su for defeating the silver-backed Wolf King and lists out his rewards. He gains 500 experience points, upgrades to level 10, and sees the proficiency of several skills increase. Loot from the fallen leader also appears in his inventory. Meanwhile, the other rookies finally overcome their own opponents, and Ding realizes just how much effort it takes to deal with a simple pack of hungry wolves. Fortunately, the dungeon title reward, which is an attack boost scroll, arrived in the nick of time to aid them during the battle. Seeing that a level 9 fisherman easily dealt with such an ordeal, Ding fumes and mutters that the dungeon must be mocking them. Not long after, Ding throws away his crappy novice machete because of its low damage. He grumbles about the money he lost, knowing he could have purchased a far better weapon. His lackey tries to praise Sue's luck, but the sore loser snaps at him to keep quiet, venting his frustration over having to bear the loss alone. He complains about his slow progress and blames the deadweights in his party. Furious, he hopes to meet Sue in the dungeon so he can vent his anger by sending Sue to the afterlife. The lackey tries to soothe his anger, and they soon return to grinding experience points. Elsewhere, Sue triggers his primary profession change task upon reaching level 10. The system informs him that the task will be randomly selected based on his current circumstances. Rather than feeling anxious, Sue feels grateful because in his previous life, he had already left the novice dungeon before he reached level 10, causing his task to scale to an E-rank dungeon he was challenging at that time. However, he still couldn't complete the task and had to grind up to level 15 before going back to complete it. This reduced the benefit of the rewards he got, but he decided to change the outcome in this new life. Soon after, the system assigns him a task, which is to defeat the guardian of the Red Rock Cave, a powerful elite monster. Seeing the location, Sue relaxes because it's still within the novice dungeon and the task feels manageable. With a confident grin, he invests his accumulated points into agility. When the agility attribute breaks past 100, the system congratulates him again and grants him a sword god profession skill called Sword Martial Master. It is a passive, low-grade platinum skill that allows him to equip any sword-type weapon regardless of level requirements. Meanwhile, inside the meeting room of First Academy in Xuanjing City, a board member reports to Principal Wang about the compiled data from the rookie dungeon, specifically highlighting the top talents standing out. Principal Wang scans through the list before asking if any statistics are missing, since Sue's name is nowhere to be found. The board member calmly reassures him that nothing is missing and that the information reflects all the data returned from the dungeon without exception. She then draws his attention to the rookie who drew first blood in the dungeon. Based on the timing and anonymity, she suggests that the person in question is most likely Sue. Principal Wang pauses at that revelation to think about Sue's supposed underwhelming performance and questions his judgment since he gave the lad a novice gift pack, but he's still not in the top 500. Before he can think further, the doors swing open and Xuanjing City's vice mayor, An Ranling, barges into the meeting room. She confronts Principal Wang directly, demanding an explanation. Apparently, he had previously informed her of Sue's 10-star awakening, yet the rookie dungeon data her secretary provided shows no trace of him. From her perspective, the situation makes little to no sense. Principal Wang attempts to calm her down and advises her to reduce her expectations because even if Sue is a 10-star talent, people with his profession usually have slightly weak early-game combat power. However, Ranling keeps rambling and accuses Principal Wang of lying to her just to get more Heavenly Tower Council qualification tokens that year. Unrelenting, she goes on to point out Yan Zhe, a 9-star talent who's currently second on the rookie list, as the best candidate to compete with the neighboring city's genius, Li Chen Guang. She also suggests the Zhang family's legitimate son, Zhang Tang, as another potential since he has 8-star talent and a cool hidden profession. After analyzing these potentials, she decides to give Principal Wang 2 qualification tokens, even though every school should get a minimum of 3. She claims it's because the academy has been flopping for the past 2 years and then threatens to give him no slot in the coming year if they underperform this time. She casually brushes off the what-ifs he's talking about and leaves to attend to her busy schedule. Shortly after, Principal Wang looks at the tokens, disappointed because he couldn't secure an extra slot with Sue's talent, but instead got one less. He then puts his hopes on Sue and looks forward to a better result. Meanwhile, outside the Red Rock Cave, Sue studies the map and confirms that he has reached the task's location. Fortunately, his journey was uneventful, with no troublesome monsters along the way. However, he never explored this cave in his previous life, leaving him uncertain about what lurks inside. Exercising caution, he steps in carefully only for a level 6 gold-digging goblin to appear without warning. Reacting instantly, Sue turns it into minced meat with swift precision before it alerts the whole cave. Unfortunately for him, the system informs him about the triggered goblin cave awareness. To his surprise, a horde of goblins suddenly spawns, and he realizes that the first-class change task isn't some easy-peasy one. Just then, the system tells him that all the goblins in the cave will launch fierce attacks at him. Presumably, the triggered goblin mode is a self-indulgent lifestyle that goes against every social norm. Without hesitation, Su begins mowing through the goblins, but the sheer number of enemies is overwhelming. Concern creeps in as he notices his weapon's durability declining. Suddenly, a massive goblin attempts to ambush him from behind, but Su narrowly evades, only to face coordinated arrow volleys from smaller goblins. Several arrows graze him despite his blocks, confirming that these monsters are far more intelligent than expected. The onslaught continues, steadily chipping away at his HP. Su calculates his remaining mana and realizes that, at this early stage, it won't sustain prolonged combat. Facing a swarm supported by an elite goblin, he abandons brute force. Choosing flexibility over pride, Su retreats into the shadows, preparing to lure his enemies into traps of his own making. Still within the depths of Red Rock Cave, the unfortunate goblins stumble straight into Su's ambush, and he cuts them down one after another with clean, decisive strikes. With that, Su calmly assesses the situation and concludes that as long as he controls the battlefield and maintains positional superiority, he can fully unleash the potential of his Ayato skill. Soon after, he clears out every remaining small goblin, leaving only the elite variant standing. Meanwhile, outside the cave, several rookie players linger near the entrance, hesitant to venture inside because of its difficulty. Among them are the two unlucky individuals who lost a sword bet to Su days earlier, Ding and his lackey. They argue quietly about whether Su or anyone among their peers would truly challenge a cave known for spawning monsters at level 7 and above. Just as the debate heats up, they notice someone exiting the cave, and it happens to be their nemesis, Su. Now, at level 11, Su casually aura farms as he checks the system notifications detailing his rewards, while his presence exudes confidence. However, he is interrupted by Ding, who lunges from behind, aiming for a decisive strike. Su reacts instantly, sidestepping with ease as the attack misses entirely. Fueled by resentment, Ding orders his lackeys to surround Su and prevent any escape. Unfortunately for them, Su has no intention of running. As Ding rants about settling old scores, he realizes that Su has already forgotten the incident that was a big deal to him. Enraged by Su's laid-backness, he orders his henchmen to eliminate Su on the spot. As the group charges forward, Su decides it is the perfect moment to test a newly acquired skill. With a thought, he summons his sword and activates the sword control skill, manipulating the blade through telekinesis. The sword darts through the air, grazing and forcing back his opponents with precise control. The attackers freeze in disbelief because sword control is a technique typically reserved for mid-stage sword controllers, far beyond what a rookie should wield. Unknown to them, Su obtained the skill as a drop from the elite goblin and elevated it from silver to gold tier with his talent. Su quickly realizes just how well the skill synchronizes with him and briefly considers how fast word of this ability will spread among the rookies. Thereafter, he checks the rewards from clearing the cave and discovers a hidden location map. The map outlines a path connecting the first-class change to the final stage, sparking his curiosity. As he scans the map, he is surprised to find a new quest tied to Red Rock Cave, referencing goblin commerce and their lifestyle. Elsewhere, at exactly 11:30 a.m., a flamboyant all-girls rookie team efficiently clears out a group of low-level monsters. They hype and celebrate their teamwork enthusiastically, praising their coordination. One member thanks Fenfenzi, a 7-star awakened talent, for carrying them through the encounter. While the others excitedly inspect the loot, Fenfenzi looks back to check on the other girls in the team and soon realizes that someone is missing. She looks around, trying to understand the situation, but then discovers a shocking clue. While Fenfenzi and the rest of the girls scout for goods, they suddenly notice the swift disappearance of one of their teammates, so they begin to worry. Goblins generally reside in dark and damp places like caves and underground tunnels to avoid sunlight. As a result, they're able to avoid natural predators and are also conducive to ambushes and plundering activities. Since they live in groups, each group is usually led by a chieftain or an elder, who serves as a leader in various capacities, including warrior, craftsman, hunter, and priest, as appointed by the leader. To maintain the growth of the group, goblins possess a high birth rate and rapid reproductive capabilities. After shortly learning about goblins and the fact that they sometimes try to breed with human females, Su arrives at the coordinate position of the cave. To his surprise, the cave doesn't seem to be anywhere in sight, so he wonders if he got the coordinates wrong. Scanning the area with his eye of insight, he then understands the situation. The red cave is in an underground cavern whose entrance is hidden by thick smoke. When Su enters the cavern, he gets to an area where he spots some goblins. Realizing that the entire colony is probably in the cave, he understands that killing one of them would alert the rest. He then hides himself as he observes the area for the treasure. While observing, he finds the body of a female student, who has probably been violated to death by the goblins. He then confirms what he learnt about the creatures to be true. Shortly after, he sees a student named Jiang Yuncheng, who must have also fallen into the goblin's smoke trap. Rather than the other student, Yunqing is still conscious and trying to ward off the horde of goblins trying to approach her. Su then sees it as a perfect opportunity to let her stall the goblins away while he secretly steals the treasure. While he turns to leave, he suddenly hears her yell that her sister is the vice director of the Jiang'an conglomerate and that she will reward anyone who can save her. Realizing that Yinting is the sister of the vice director, he spoke to him about it, and Su decides to intervene. While the goblins charge at Yinting to attack, Su suddenly tosses his weapon into their midst. He then uses his sword control technique to unsheath it, creating an immensely strong light called Iaido Slash. Since the goblins are natural enemies of light, they immediately flee from the scene. Given that Su didn't kill any of the goblins, none of the other goblins in the cave get alerted. Yunqing thanks Su for saving her, but he simply replies that he just happened to be passing by. She also tries to bring up matters about the reward for saving her, but Su tells her to focus on making it out of the cave alive first. While he tries to leave, she begs him not to leave her behind, but Su sternly replies that she'd only slow him down. He then suddenly discovers that the treasure is buried under where they're standing. After digging it out, he decides to use his sublimation talent to improve the quality of the chest, transforming it from a silver tier chest into a low-grade gold tier lottery chest. Just like the name implies, a lottery chest can randomly draw high-level items, skill books, or equipment with a high probability. Opening the treasure chest, Su is given a Shadow Flow set and a Platinum-grade Soul Healer skill scroll, which are both far from what he expected. Seeing that he was only rewarded a Shadow Flow set and a Soul Healer skill scroll, Su gets disappointed as he had worked extra hard, expecting a more bountiful reward. The Shadow Flow set seems quite useful to him, but the Soul Healer skill scroll stands out weirdly as it doesn't match his profession at all. Yinqing remarks that it probably appeared because of her. She then introduces herself as a 7-star Soul Healer, taking Su completely by surprise. Su then immediately receives a notification from the system, stating that Yinqing has now joined his team. Meanwhile, in a different location in the dungeon, Yao randomly stumbles on the dead bodies of her peers. Before she can react, Li, the student responsible, sees her and makes her his next target, forcing her on edge. After a while, she gains some distance from him, so she conceals herself and tries to sneak away secretly. She then accidentally makes a loud noise, alerting Li and causing him to charge at her with a heavy attack. Thanks to her quick reaction time, she's able to slightly evade the attack and gain some distance again. Surprised at her swift moves, Li mentions that he never expected a girl like her to hold out against him for so long, remarking that the Xuanjing Academy might not really be entirely trash. Yao asks why he's killing them when, based on his school uniform, he clearly goes to a school in the neighboring city. Li then responds that his level 10 first-class change task happened to assign him to kill 50 players. According to him, since it'd be strange for him to suddenly start killing people around him, he decided to visit their weak school to do justice. He also states that their academy is to blame for being the one with the record of having the most trash students in several cities. Suddenly, he charges at her, but Yao tries to block him off with her necromancy skeletons, which he easily destroys. He then calls her weak as he chases her with a fatal attack. Just before the attack hits her, someone blocks it off, to their surprise. Yanzi then reveals himself with his teammates and promises to protect her. Meanwhile, not too far from the Red Cave, Su submits treasure fragments to the system and gets a notification about completing the primary class change task. He then gets promoted to first class as his swordsmanship power, speed, and proficiency increase in double folds. Yinqing, who uses the Soul Healer skill scroll, also unlocks some advanced skills that make Su raise an eyebrow. He then concludes that she must have an infinite amount of luck. Thinking about the great things he could accomplish with that amount of luck on his side, he reconsiders his options and agrees to complete the dungeon with her. Hearing this, Yinqing gets so excited as she begins to yap about how her sister had hired a group of thugs to help her achieve this same goal, but ended up being ineffective. Although Su naturally doesn't like the matchup, he does it solely for her skill. After becoming teammates with Yinqing, Su receives a message from Yao, so he decides to check it out. Meanwhile, back at the Battle Avenue, Li, Yan, and Yao are both surprised to see that he has not been fighting with his full power the whole time. In a matter of seconds, he wipes out Yan's entire team without breaking a sweat. He also easily blocks off Yan's powerful long-range attacks, making him seem useless. Based on the research Yan had done beforehand, he can identify Li as a genius, awakened 10-star talent with a blade maniac profession. After defeating all his men, Li approaches them slowly, ranting that he has only been able to kill 35 people, and that he's still far from his goal. While he approaches, Yan, who is a ranged professional, remarks that he can only barely stand the chance if he manages to gain some distance. But that might be troublesome at the moment. Yao also remarks that her mana has bottomed out and that she can no longer use her necromancy. They then both realize that they're cooked. Seeing that they have nowhere to run, Li charges at Yan to take care of him first, But to his surprise, he gets interrupted by Yao, who blocks him off. She instructs Yan to run as far as he can while she tries to hold him off, but Li gets pissed by the fact. He attempts to deliver a fatal blow but gets interrupted by a strange sword. Su has come to their rescue. Yao had texted him earlier to warn him of the danger in her area, but he had decided to come instead. Seeing her, Su gets flashbacks to how she protected him in his past life as well, which led to her death. This time around, he promises to protect her. Su then uses his sword control skill to retrieve his sword, which he uses to clash with Li. Seeing him, Li identifies him as the level 10 sword controller he heard about, but he doesn't expect him to have the upper hand, as he's only a controller. Watching from a distance, Yan remarks about how amazing Su is. He then considers providing long-range support to elevate their chances of winning. Suddenly, he and Yao feel the impact of someone using healing magic on them. Yinqing then reveals herself from the sidelines and introduces herself as Su's teammate, putting them in shock. Su had boldly told them he was planning on going solo, so seeing him with a teammate strikes a bit of jealousy within them. While she heals them further, Yan asks her to hurry up so they can join Su in the fight. Yinqing replies, telling him not to worry, as Su is way stronger than they think. After a while of clashing with Su, Li wonders why a sword controller possesses the movement techniques of a sword prodigy. After observing Su's sword skill, Li commends him greatly, admitting that his strength exceeds his expectations. However, he declares that it's time to finally decide which of them is stronger. Hearing his name, Su remarks that he heard of Li in his past life, but never got the chance to meet him personally. He then smiles as he charges back at him to see if his sword is sharper or if Li's blade is harder. When he gets close enough, Li attempts a flying stab with one of his blades, but Su blocks it easily. Li then exposes that it was a trap and that Su has fallen for it. According to him, the blade energy drawn by his blade's flying stab attack is enough to lock the enemy in place for another attack. He tosses his second sword at Su, but Su easily tosses his sword as well to block the attack. He then uses his sword control technique to redirect the bearing of the sword, making it charge at full speed at Li, who is now weaponless. Li manages to dodge the attack but gets grazed in the process. He then picks up his sword and charges at Su to retaliate, but Su evades all his attacks easily, getting him more frustrated. Shortly after, Su controls his sword back while trying to spite Li. Yinqing, on the other hand, completes the healing process, so Yan and Yao try to rush over to support Su. To their surprise, when they get there, they find out that he has already defeated Li. While Su turns around to leave, Li gets up and uses his last energy to attempt a deadly attack, which catches Su completely off guard. It's his strongest skill, which he has been saving for last. It encompasses a rainforest rapid blade attack, which unleashes a series of continuous slashes into the area. Seeing how the tides have turned, Yao tries to rush in to save him, but Yan stops her, telling her she'd only be throwing away her life in the process. Still, she struggles to set herself free, stating that she doesn't mind dying as long as she can save Su. Su then responds, telling her to listen to Yan and not get close.